Hey y'all, it's your girl Jess Melodies coming to you with a review on KOD, J. Cole's new album that premiered on 4/20. So let's get into it. Let's just talk about how intentional J. Cole was. How intentional he is with everything that he does, right? What are the chances that it drops on the most national drug holiday of America, 4/20? So there's 3 different meanings that J. Cole had for this album that he revealed to us. So it's Kids on Drugs, King Overdose, and Kill Our Demons. And so with this, it kind of reminds me of like this holy trinity, right? It is like the evolution of a human who is going through addiction. And this whole album is about self-awareness. So the first line of this album when it starts is, "Life brings much pain. There are many ways to deal with this pain. Choose wisely." And if you were ever wondering what the overarching theme of this album was, it is that sentence within itself. That sentence is repeated throughout the entire album multiple times. So then we get into the first song of the album, KOD. In this song, he addresses everyone's $1,000,000 question. Cole, why don't you ever have features on your album? And pretty much this is what his response is, and I'm going to paraphrase it. These folks ain't worthy to be on my ish. Boom, mic drop. This is your reason. Don't ask me no more. And it pretty much highlights addiction, what it is, the effects on you, how it possesses you, and you turn into somebody that you are just not. Also in the song, it highlights the popular drugs and how this is glorified within hip-hop culture these days. One thing I didn't like about this song is that it seemed like the chorus was sung repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again, and you're looking for a verse and it's like, oh, here comes the chorus again. So that would be my only downside of the song, is I wish that there was some variance in the content. Photograph is about social media, right, and the internet, and you know, the misconceptions and the false perceptions of people. And he talks about how we get a high off of what we see on our timelines every day, you know. And the thing is that when you are on social media, people are only giving you a fraction of what they are. They're not showing you that after they log off Instagram, they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay their rent. They're not talking about how much in debt they are. This song deals a lot with perception versus reality. So we get into the next song, The Cutoff. And this is where we have been introduced to Kill Edward. And when we were seeing the song titles before we actually got the album, everyone is like, who's Kill Edward? Oh my God, J. Cole actually put a feature on his album. But false. Okay, he had already addressed this in the first song, saying that I don't put features on this album because these cats ain't worth being on my stuff. So Kill Edward is J. Cole. And when you listen to the song, he simply just distorts his voice, but it's him. And it's like him versus himself. You know, the flesh versus the spirit. In this song, J. Cole is talking about how, you know, when someone is going through depression and they're going through a really tough time, they're in the darkest moments of their life, and how it's no one around them to support them. And how the so-called friends that were along for the ride, they're nowhere to be found now. J. Cole also talks about how these so-called friends have done some really messed up stuff to him, okay? And he's like toiling with, should I get them back? Should I have vengeance? There are a lot of people out here that have fallen into depression and they feel like they don't have an olive branch. You know, they feel like everyone around them is against them. They feel like they're not having that support around them. And when people start to feel that way, it's very dangerous. Then we get into the next song, ATM. This is another one of my favorite songs, right? He is talking about money and how basically money is the root of all evil. But really, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. This song also highlights how all money ain't good money. You know what I mean? Just because it has a dollar sign attached to it doesn't mean that it should be something that you should go after. It doesn't mean it's something that you should chase. People are willing to forego their morality, their values, all to chase the almighty dollar. And it talks about how just money rules over everything. You can have all the money in the world and there's still a void inside of you. Now we're getting into the next song, Motivate. Now, to me, this song correlates with the song previously, ATM. He starts the song off, with this super nasally voice. He's giving me this Godfather, cotton in the throat type of voice. And he only does this for like the first few lines of the song, and then he's back to his normal voice. He's talking about how he has it all. He's still dying inside. But, no one sees that he's dying inside because he's putting on this facade for people. And how, okay, I still have this void. I'll just pop a pill and I'll be back to myself again. So now we transition into the song Kevin's Heart. And so immediately when I saw this title, I'm like, okay, there's going to be some scandal. There's going to be some type of cheating going on. But then the song starts. And it reminds me of like that classic, it's giving me that R&B feel. And I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is about love. Maybe it's about romance. And, maybe he's going to be talking all good to this girl. It's going to be poetic. And then the first line is, you're my number one. I don't need nothing on the side. Immediately, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. This is not a love song. This is exactly what I thought it would be. So Cole, she shouldn't be the number one. She should be the only one. So let that be the correction of the first line of the song. So then J. Cole goes on to talk about the constant temptation that he has. He wants to be faithful to his number one, his main girl, but he has this constant temptation. And, he talks about how, his main girl, his number one, has planted seeds in him. He talks about how, she had, and these are the lyrics, she has wife written all over her. He doesn't have the self-discipline and he doesn't have the self-control. He wants to be able to have main girl, the number one girl, sitting at home, but then he got the number two girl, the number three girl, the number four, the number five, the number six. He pretty much has like a whole bench lineup of women that are willing and able to be at his beck and call just in case number one isn't available, pretty much. You can have an addiction to multiple women. You can have an addiction to multiple men. You can have an addiction to sex. So with all of that, I must say that this man in this song is a man that actually took the time to self-reflect. Now he's self-aware. Now he's transparent. Now he's being honest with himself. You know what I mean? And he knows that I have done this person very wrong. So I'm like, okay, here comes the evolution. Here comes the victory. The person is going to get their act together and they going to treat main girl right, and main girl going to turn into the only girl. And then the song ends abruptly and you're like, so did he ever conquer that sex addiction? Did he ever get his act together? Now we're going to get into the song Brackets. Now, I like this song. J. Cole, he's always been a bit of a singer. He's not a singer, but Cole can definitely hold a tune, right? And so the song opens up and he comes in and he's croning and it starts off like, oh, 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 yeah, yeah, oh, 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 yeah, yeah. And I'm like, Cole, go ahead and give us those tunes though. Brackets is one of those songs where it's very controversial. One of them being, you know, you make all this money and the government takes half in taxes. And it's like, you know, where does all this money go? You know, what, you know, you all say that it's being put into roads, it's being put into school systems. But if it's being put into school systems, why is it that, you know, we have districts that don't have the money to pay their teachers? You know, there are districts that don't have the resources to give children a proper education. And so he's like, where is all this money going? So then he goes on to say, ha, I know where the money is going. The government is using that money and giving it away to companies that create weapons. And these same weapons are ending up in my neighborhood and kids are dying by these weapons. Why don't you fund proper education for these kids? You know, maybe they'll stay out of trouble if schools actually had the resources that were needed. Then he transitions into the song Once an Addict. And in this one, it's about witnessing someone that is dealing with some type of addiction, but being the person that's witnessing it and feeling helpless. You're trying to help this person conquer what it is that they're going through, but they don't listen. And, you know, it's going in one ear and out the other, and how, you know, you're helplessly watching. We want to save everybody, and we have tasked ourselves with that responsibility, and it's impossible. That person has to make the choice to want to change. So now we're into the song Friends, and this is another feature of Kill Edward. This is a great transition from Once an Addict. This is like the full scope of watching someone lead down a road of destruction. You see it. They don't see it, but you see it. He's talking about his friends back home and how, you know, they keep finding themselves in the same trap over and over and over again, and how, you know, he has this guilt because he left. He highlights the narrative of, you know, people's perception of people getting out of the hood is you got to be a ball player or you got to be a rapper. He then talks about one of the most reoccurring themes that we've seen within the African American community, and that is the masking of depression, and how depression is such a touchy subject. And, you know, we tell you, oh, just go pray about it. And that's good, you know, pray for them, right? But there are actions that need to change in order for them to conquer whatever it is that they're going through. Instead of encouraging people to get help, whether it be therapy or something like that, it's swept under the rug. And then the song then transitions to what I call the climax, and where now J. Cole, you know, his voice, there's so much compassion in it. You know, he's begging and pleading for this person to change their life around. Then we get to the song Window Pane. This song is so dear to my heart. This is probably my favorite song of the album. And it's the second to last song, but it actually should have been the last song. And I'll come back to why I feel that way. But I think that this song would have been a great wrap up to the album. It starts off where J. Cole is interviewing this little girl, and she is recalling the story of, you know, her being in the house with her family, and how she heard gunshots come through the window, and how her cousin was shot to death, and how she witnessed this trauma, how she witnessed death in the place that she called home. People are out here having kids, and they have all of these demons internally and so many things that are not dealt with, and how they go on, they have kids that they're not ready to have, you know, that they're not ready to even be good examples for. And it's like a recurring cycle. It's like a curse. You know, it's like a generational curse, who then have their babies and they teach them the same thing. So here we are at the end of the song, and this is probably the most powerful point of the album. J. Cole asked the little girl, and he says, well, you know, why do you think that bad things happen in the world? Why do you think that God allows bad things to happen in the world? And her response is, God is trying to warn us. You know, God is on his way back. There's, you know, and she references the second coming of Christ and how, you know, the second coming, God is going to take all of his believers and we're all going to be in heaven. So that's why I say that this song should have come last, because it's kind of like, boom, that's the end. You know, another mic drop. We all have hope that even through the bad, there will be a victory for us in the end. And even if we don't see it in this life, there will be victory for us in the next life. So here we are at the last song of the album, 1985. And with this song, this is the song that, I mean, goes there. This is the song that is an observation of what's currently going on in hip hop. J. Cole starts off the song talking about how folks these days are fake woke. You know, the fake hoteps walking around like they know everything, but they really don't. He notices, like, hey, I see you spending money on expensive cars and jewelry, you know, drip, drip, drip. You know, do your thing, but make sure that you're spending money wisely, because this rap game, it don't last forever. Then he gets into the life of a music artist and how, you know, music artists these days are making their money based upon touring, based upon doing shows. And he was like, yeah, while you're spending all this money and not investing your money properly, make sure that them shows don't dry up, because that's where your bread and butter is. And then he hops into the downfall of rap and how, you know, there's just no content these days. People aren't really talking about anything. It's all about sex, drugs, money, clothes. And he's like, listen, I'm not impressed by what you're doing, but I'm also not a hater. Get to the money. How these rappers lack innovation, how they lack creativity, and they're pretty much just riding a wave of what's popular now. You know, and what happens when the wave is no longer? And J. Cole then says, as a result, these rappers' careers have no longevity. It's like, if you don't have creativity, if you don't have innovation, you're not going to have a career that lasts long, and people are going to become uninterested. Those shows are going to start drying up. And then what do you have? Because you didn't spend your money wisely from the beginning, you end up in a hole. And you end up in the struggle all over again, and then it turns into a cycle. So we finished up the segment of the lyrical content of the album. So now we'll get into the production, the beats, the piano arrangements. People are saying that the production is subpar. However, when you're thinking about J. Cole's previous projects, he doesn't put on this grand production for his album. And the reason being is because he definitely focuses on the story and the lyrical content. The lyrical content will always be A1. You know, it's a whole lot of artists, especially the artists of these days, you know, who can kill a beat, but the lyrics are trash. The production of this album gives me a very mellow feel. Like, I don't feel sad, but I'm not super happy about what I'm hearing, because these are the struggles that people are going through daily. I like how the album opens up with like that jazz sound, and so you hear the horns going, you hear the saxophone going. It opens up very soft, which is the tone of the album. Then when the woman's voice is talking over the jazz, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it kind of reminded me of like a Spike Lee joint. You know, one of them Spike Lee joints from like way back where, you know, you have the narrator and then you have this jazz going in the background. It was like the perfect combination. Most of the songs were a very slow to moderate tempo. Maybe you had a couple songs that had a very upbeat type of tempo, like ATM. It's very, you know, it sounds like the modern day beats that you hear now. And I have a very strong feeling that ATM is going to be the single that you hear on the radio. It just had that feel to it. I think people will gravitate towards that. The message is great. You know, the beat is very modern. I will say that the production is very simplified. I will rate this album a strong 8.5. So you all let me know what you think. You know, drop your comments below this video. Let me know what you thought about the album. If you like this video, make sure you click up that thumbs up sign. And most importantly, subscribe. Thank you all for watching. Peace and love.